This episode picks up with Min-hee getting out of her car and grabbing a gun from a case in the boot. Min-hee shoots the gun, which turns out to be an EMP, which stops the drones which are surrounding the house. We flash back to Jin Man's mum's funeral. Jin Man tells to tell his brother that their mum might not have died to her health, as he believes that she may have been murdered. His brother does not want to believe him and tells him that their mum had surgery for a tract cancer twice. While they are having this discussion, a young Jian breaks the vase while in the funeral hall. Jian's mum asks Jin Man to take Jian home while they finish up with the wedding preparations. Jin Man agrees, and shortly after he left with Jian, his brother and his wife are greeted by Seongjo. Seongjo mentions how their mother worried so much about her sons when she was alive, somehow implying that he had spoken to her about this. Meanwhile, Jian is in her bed asleep when she wakes up and goes into the living room where she finds Jin Man watching a documentary. Jian asks about not being able to see her grandmother anymore as she is dead. Jin Man tells her no, and that she wouldn't be able to see her anymore, but death isn't something scary. He uses the documentary that they are using to explain why it isn't scary. He tells Jian that the lion is facing death is quiet because he is strong and only the weak bark. He then goes on to tell her not to be scared. Jin Man receives a call that instantly changes the mood. He tells Jian that he will be going to the funeral hall to meet her parents.
네가 잠시 집에 혼자 있으면 삼촌 친구가 곧 와서 문을 열어달라고 할 거야. 근데 너 절대로 그냥 열어주면 안 돼. 네가 수수께끼를 내서 그 문제를 맞추면 그때 열어줘야 해. 만약에 문제를 못 맞추면 절대 열어주지 마. 할 수 있겠어?
나 잘할 수 있어.
He tells Jian that he will leave her in the apartment and that he will be sending a friend to look after her. He tells her that they will need a password that only the friend would know, so Jian comes up with a riddle. Jian is alone in the apartment when she hears someone outside the door. She calls out and asks if it is her uncle's friend. There is no response, but Jian still hears them at the door. She gets closer to the door and looks through the spy hole. She sees a man outside the door and tells him that she will let him know if he answers the riddle correctly. He says the riddle, but has no response. She says the riddle again and slowly backs away when she senses that something isn't right. The man outside manages to open a door and is about to enter the apartment when he is pulled back by somebody outside the door. The person that pulled back the man outside enters the apartment and shows Jian his phone. He has written a note telling Jian that he is her uncle's friend and apologizes for being late. He also writes the correct answer for Jian's riddle. Once he has confirmed that he is her uncle's friend, he asks Jian to hide in her room. There is another individual making his way into the apartment. There is a shootout in the apartment and her uncle's friend gets hurt. Jian opens the bedroom door and sees when her uncle's friend has his hand cut off. She shuts the door and tries to hide before they find her. After killing her uncle's friend, the intruders search her room trying to find out where she is hiding. After looking under her bed, one of the intruders notices that her bedroom window is open due to the blowing curtain.
야, 맞네, 맞아. 정진만의 조카 맞아.
He opens the window more to find a very brave Jian hanging from some pipes under her bedroom window. No idea how this girl managed that by herself, but gotta give her points for that effort. Seongjo tries to tell Jian to stop hanging and tries to get her to come back up. Jian ain't no fool, and instead of trying to go back into her room, she decides to let go of the pipe and fall. Thankfully, there was some discarded furniture below, which softened her fall. Seeing this, Seongjo comments that Jian is definitely Jin Man's niece. After her freefall, Jian tries to run away, but is quickly followed by one of the intruders who jumped out of the window to follow her. While she is running, Jian is hit by a van. Thankfully, Jian is okay, and we see her being taken to hospital. The hospital staff concocted a story as to why she was alone when she got hit by the van. Later in the evening, Jian wakes up in her hospital bed. Jian is dreaming that a hyena is approaching her on the hospital bed and that the hyena is holding the dismembered hand of her uncle's friend. Jian remembers what her uncle told her before and does not make a sound, but you can see that she is visibly scared. Jian wakes up and finds herself in the same hospital room, and she senses something is off and hides. An intruder enters her hospital room, and Jian uses the opportunity to escape and begins running away from her room. Jian is followed by the intruder and somehow manages to find her way to the morgue. Finding a few places to hide, Jian decides to hide in one of the freezers. The freezer that Jian had hidden in happens to be the freezer where her mom has been placed. The intruder does not manage to get to Jian as they are stopped by Jin Man after they get into a fight. After Jin Man has dealt with them, he opens the freezer containing Jian, covering her eyes so that she does not see the carnage around them. We then see Jian and Jin Man driving in a car when Jin Man gives Jian her favourite stuffed toy. They finally arrive at Jin Man's house and Jian drops her bag when she exits the car. She takes her time gathering everything up and putting it back into the bag.
잘 들어, 정지한. 나는 너의 엄마 아빠가 아니야. 될 수도 없고. 그러니까 난 엄마 아빠가 너한테 해줬던 것들을 역시 해줄 수 없다는 뜻이기도 해.
Jin Man tells Jian that he is not her parent and therefore he can't do the things that a parent would do for her. Seemed a little bit harsh at the time. Jian is in her bed and we see Jin Man checking on her. Jin Man recalls a conversation he held with someone regarding Jian. Turns out that she is suffering with aphasia and dissociative amnesia. Because Jian stopped speaking, she is getting bullied at school by people who call her stupid. The bullies are stopped by another kid called Jeong Min. When Jian is walking away, she overhears the bullies talking about her parents. They say that her mum was stabbed to death by her dad. Hearing this, Jian takes a chair and throws it at the bullies. The lady that Jin Man is talking to tells him that she can see that Jian is an outsider. School's finished and Jian is looking for Jin Man in the rain. We can see the other kids with their parents and umbrellas and a lonely Jian has none. When she is walking home, a truck pulls up beside her. It's Jin Man. A stubborn Jian refuses to get in the truck and continues to walk home. Jin Man doesn't wait around and drives off. Jian has a fever and is laying in bed. Jin Man attends to Jian. The next day, a stubborn Jian refuses to eat the breakfast that was laid out by Jin Man. Later on in the evening, Jin Man only prepares food for himself, which does not go unnoticed by Jian. Realizing that Jin Man was not going to provide her any food, Jian went to prepare her food for herself. Their joint stubbornness continued for days to come with neither speaking to each other. Jin Man would take up the whole couch and watch TV. So the following evening, Jian made sure that she had control of the couch and TV first. Jian would leave a post-it notes for items that she wanted along with a price for Jin Man to see. After he sees the note, Jin Man would leave the required money on the fridge. We see a talk with Jin Man and Jian's teacher where he tells her that Jian needs to overcome the issues herself.
지금 벙어리 년 때문에 오늘 재수 똥이네. 야, 닫아.
After school, the bullies manage to push Jian into a storage basement under the school and lock her in. Jian is still locked in the basement when it gets dark. Jian has another vision of the hyena and begins to panic. She begins to call out to her uncle and bangs on the door when it is finally opened by her uncle. As soon as Jian is free, she asks him why he is so late before giving him a hug. Back to present day, Minhee is at the door at Jin Man's house. She tells Jian that the front door was open, so she just came in. She asks Jian if she can wait for Jin Man inside the house. Minhee tries to appeal to her by mentioning that she knows that she is Jin Man's niece and mentions her going to Gwangju National University. Jian tells her that she doesn't attend that university, which appears to pass Minhee's test. Minhee tells Jian it's okay and that she'll call her uncle and come back next time. Jian gets a text on the phone that Jeong Min found in the bathroom that told her that they will come and kill her themselves.
지안아, 와서 이것 좀 봐봐.
머덜프 운영자 계정을 해킹해서 이것저것 살펴봤는데
Jeong Min tells Jian to have a look at what he found on the computer. He tells her that he hacked into the operator's account and wants to show her what he found. They find out about the coding system for murder help. One of the codes they come across piques Jeong Min's interest, and that is code green.
그래서 그린은 누군데?
머덜프 운영자 너희 삼촌 정진만 그리고
Jian does not want to believe that her uncle has anything to do with the site. They hear a big bang coming from outside the house and go to investigate. One of the walls has been blown down and there's a drone watching them from outside the house. The drone begins to shoot at the glass but is unable to penetrate due to it being bulletproof. Jian and Jeong Min try to run out the back door only to find that there's another drone waiting for them. They go back into the house and watch the first drone shoot some devices onto the window. The window is then blown by the devices that were attached. Jian and Jeong Min go further into the house to hide, with Jian in her room and Jeong Min in her uncle's room. The drone goes into Jian's uncle's room where Jeong Min is hiding and looks around the room. It comes across a cupboard which it then approaches. The drone shoots at the cupboard, but Jeong Min remains unhurt due to it being bulletproof. Just when the drone was about to use another tactic, it is hit by a stone by the slingshot that Jian was using and then is promptly hit by a chair. We see a bunch of guys standing and chatting around a barrel fire. One of the guys uses his knife to take out a device out of his arm and says that he no longer needs the code anymore. They are approached by another guy, and without wasting any time, they start looking through the variety of weapons laid out in front of them. After talking a little bit more about being alive and that Jin Man is dead, they get into their vehicles and drive away to get started on their mission. Okay, so there was quite a few time jumps in this episode, but it gives you a bit more story on some of the characters and leads up to present day. Hopefully we'll see a bit more, but there wouldn't be, taking up as much as the episode, and we can go further on and progress the story. But anyways, that is it for today's video. If you do like what we have going on here, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next episode.